Let us know. Now, let's dive into today's story. The downtown Chicago firm of Mercer and Associates hummed with pre-holiday efficiency as Burton McLean reviewed the quarterly financials on his dual monitors. At 32, he'd built a reputation as one of the city's most meticulous forensic accountants, the kind of professional who could trace a single dollar through a labyrinth of shell corporations and offshore accounts. His office overlooked Michigan Avenue, where December shoppers moved like colorful ants beneath the holiday lights. His phone buzzed. Karina. Hey, are you still coming to the house early? Her voice carried that breathless quality he'd fallen in love with 3 years ago. Dad wants to talk to you before everyone arrives. About what? He didn't say. You know how he gets all mysterious. She laughed, but something strained lurked beneath it. Just be here by 4, okay? Burton hung up and stared at his reflection in the darkening window. Karina Thornton had walked into his life during a charity fundraiser, all dark curls and sharp wit, challenging him on everything from wine pairings to political theory. She worked as a psychiatric nurse at Cook County Hospital, dealt with humanity's worst moments daily, yet somehow maintained an optimism that bordered on defiance. Her family had money, old money from her grandfather's pharmaceutical patents, but she'd chosen to work in the public sector anyway. They'd married last spring in a ceremony at the Drake Hotel. Small, elegant, perfect. And 3 weeks ago, she'd shown him the positive pregnancy test with tears streaming down her face. The Thornton estate sprawled across 2 acres in Lake Forest, a testament to wealth that didn't need to announce itself. Burton pulled his Audi through the iron gates at 3:50, noting the fresh snow on the evergreens lining the drive. The main house loomed ahead, a brick Georgian revival that had sheltered 3 generations of Thorntons. Dale Rios, Karina's father, met him at the door. The man had aged considerably since Burton had last seen him at Thanksgiving. His face carried a grayish pallor, and his usually impeccable posture had developed a defeated slouch. Burton, thank God. Dale's handshake trembled. Come with me. Quickly, before Karina gets here. They descended to the basement, not the finished rec room where family gatherings happened, but the original cellar that Dale had converted into a private study. Boxes lined the walls. Old furniture draped in sheets created strange shadows in the dim light. Dale moved to a locked cabinet, produced a key from his pocket, and withdrew a leather-bound album. I should have told you before the wedding, Dale said, his voice cracking. But Karina seemed so different, so stable. I convinced myself the pattern wouldn't repeat. What pattern? Dale opened the album. Newspaper clippings, yellowed with age, covered the pages. Burton leaned closer and read the headline from the Chicago Tribune, dated August 15, 1998. Lake Forest mother drowns 3 children, attempts suicide. The room tilted. Eileen, Dale whispered. My first wife. Karina's biological mother. Burton knew the official story, that Karina's mother had died in a car accident when Karina was 8. He'd never questioned it, never pushed when Karina deflected conversations about her early childhood. I don't understand, Burton managed. Dale turned pages with shaking hands. More articles. Police reports. Psychiatric evaluations. Eileen had what they called postpartum psychosis after our twins were born. Victor and Vanessa. Beautiful children. His voice broke. She seemed to recover. For years, everything seemed normal. Then one day, I came home early from work and found. The crime scene photos made Burton's stomach heave. A bathtub. 3 small bodies. The twins, age 7. And a 5-year-old boy Burton had never heard mentioned. Marcus, Dale said. Our youngest. Eileen had another breakdown after his birth, but again, she seemed to stabilize. The doctors said she was responding to treatment. We had no warning that August morning. Karina was at summer camp. When she came home, I told her there'd been an accident. I couldn't let her know the truth. I couldn't destroy her completely. Karina knows she had siblings? No. Dale closed the album. I erased everything. Changed our family story. My mother, Patricia. You know her as Grandma Pat. She helped me create a new narrative. We moved to a different house, different neighborhood. Started over. Burton's mind raced through every interaction, every conversation, searching for signs he'd missed. But Karina's not her mother. Mental illness doesn't work that way, doesn't it? Dale pulled out another folder. Medical records, recent ones, with Karina's name on the header. I've been monitoring her psychiatric appointments. I have a friend at the hospital who owes me favors. Burton, she's been lying to you. She's been having episodes. The records detailed 6 months of visits to Dr. Osvaldo Bell, a psychiatrist specializing in severe mood disorders. Prescriptions for antipsychotics. Notes about intrusive thoughts and dissociative periods. The most recent entry, dated 2 weeks ago, patient reports increased auditory hallucinations. Adjusting medication. Advised against pregnancy until stabilization achieved. She told me she'd stop taking birth control because we'd agreed to try for a baby, Burton said numbly. Did she? Dale's eyes held a terrible pity. Or did you assume that's what her going off medication meant? Burton thought back. They discussed starting a family. Karina had seemed enthusiastic, if a bit distracted. Then she'd mentioned casually that she'd stopped her pills. He'd been thrilled, interpreting it as readiness. But she'd never explicitly said the pills were contraceptives. You need to understand the genetics, Dale continued. Eileen's mother spent her final years institutionalized. Her sister died in a psychiatric facility. This runs in their blood, Burton, and it manifests around pregnancy, around children. Eileen was fine until she became a mother. Then something in her brain just fractured. Burton stood abruptly. I need to talk to Karina. No. Dale grabbed his arm. Not yet. Not like this. You need to protect yourself first. Protect that child. What are you suggesting? Dale's expression hardened into something Burton had never seen before, a cold calculation that belonged on a different man entirely. Document everything. Get copies of her medical records through legal channels. Build a case for custody. Because if she does what her mother did, if she hurts that baby, you'll need proof you tried to prevent it. This is insane. Karina would never. Eileen was the most loving mother I'd ever seen. Dale interrupted. Until the day she drowned our children in the bathtub and slit her wrists. She left a note saying she was protecting them from the demons. Do you want to bet your child's life that Karina is different? Burton stumbled up the basement stairs, his mind fragmenting. In the kitchen, Karina's stepmother, Tracy Klein Thornton, was arranging canapes on silver platters. She'd married Dale 5 years after Eileen's death, stepping into a family haunted by secrets she'd probably never fully understood. Burton, sweetheart, you look pale, Tracy said, concerned. Are you feeling all right? I need some air. Outside, snow had begun falling harder. Burton walked to his car, sat in the driver's seat, and pulled out his phone. His fingers moved automatically, searching for Dr. Osvaldo Bell's office. Closed for the holidays. He tried the hospital where Karina worked, asked for her supervisor. This is Luther Rose, nurse manager. How can I help you? I'm Burton McLean, Karina Thornton's husband. I need to know if there have been any concerns about her behavior at work. A long pause. Mr. McLean, I can't discuss employee matters. Please. She's pregnant. Her father just told me things that have me terrified for her safety and our babies. Another pause, longer. Then, off the record, we've had to reassign her twice in the past month. She's been making patients uncomfortable, talking about hearing voices that give her medical instructions. I've been trying to convince her to take medical leave, but she insists she's fine. I was planning to escalate to HR after New Year's. Burton's hands were shaking so badly, he nearly dropped the phone. Thank you for telling me. He should go home. He should talk to Karina. Instead, he drove to the 3rd District Police Station on Western Avenue, where a detective named Von Owen listened to his story with increasing alarm. You understand what you're asking me to do? Owen was mid-40s, with the weary competence of someone who'd seen everything twice. Without evidence of immediate danger, I can't intervene in a domestic situation. Her mother murdered 3 children. Burton spread the documents Dale had given him on the detective's desk. The same psychiatric conditions are manifesting. My wife is pregnant and unstable. What happens when she stops taking her medication entirely? What happens when she's alone with our newborn? Owen studied the papers, his expression darkening. These medical records, how did you obtain them? Her father. That's not legal access, Mr. McLean. Nothing here is admissible. And frankly, what you're describing sounds more like you need a family lawyer and a psychiatric intervention, not police involvement. So I should wait until she does something? Until it's too late? Owen leaned back. I have a daughter. If I were in your position, I'd be scared too. But the law is clear. Your wife hasn't committed a crime. She hasn't threatened anyone. You need to approach this through proper medical and legal channels. Burton drove home in a daze. His condo in Lincoln Park felt too small suddenly, the walls closing in. Karina arrived an hour later, her cheeks flushed from the cold, carrying bags of Chinese takeout. "You never came back?" she said, kissing his cheek. "Dad said you weren't feeling well. Are you okay?" He studied her face, the face he'd kissed 1,000 times, the face he'd imagined in their children. "Your father told me about your mother." The bag slipped from her hands. Containers split open, spilling lo mein across the hardwood floor. "What about her?" "The truth. About what she did. About the twins and Marcus." Karina's expression went absolutely blank, a mask dropping over features that suddenly seemed unfamiliar. "I don't know what you're talking about. You were 8 years old. You had 3 siblings. Your mother drowned them. My mother died in a car accident. I was at camp. There were no siblings." But her voice had gone mechanical, rehearsed. "Karina, I saw the police reports. The psychiatric evaluations. I know about Dr. Bell. I know you've been having episodes." She bent down, began scooping noodles back into containers with methodical precision. "My father had no right to tell you his delusions. He's been unstable since Tracy started talking about divorce. Making up stories, obsessing over the past. These aren't stories. Enough." She stood abruptly. "I'm tired. I'm pregnant and tired, and I don't want to discuss my father's mental breakdown. We're going to Christmas dinner tomorrow. We're going to smile and be normal, and then we're never speaking about this again." She walked to the bedroom and closed the door. Burton stood among the ruins of their dinner, understanding that he'd just glimpsed something deeply wrong beneath his wife's polished surface. He couldn't sleep that night. While Karina snored softly beside him, he opened his laptop and began searching. Eileen Richards Thornton's case had been sensational enough to warrant extensive coverage. He found articles, court documents, psychiatric testimony. The details were worse than Dale had described. Eileen had been a promising young artist, vibrant and beloved, until pregnancy triggered something catastrophic in her brain. After the twins' birth, she'd been hospitalized for 3 weeks. Upon release, she'd seemed recovered. She'd returned to painting, to motherhood, to normal life. Then Marcus was born, and the medication stopped working. She became convinced that demons were entering her children through their skin, that only drowning could wash them clean. The day of the murders, she'd called Dale at work. "I've saved them," she'd said. "They're with God now, where the demons can't reach." Burton found himself reading survivor accounts from other families where mothers had experienced similar breaks. The pattern was chillingly consistent: normalcy, pregnancy, psychosis, violence. And the children, always the children paid the price. At 3 a.m., he made a decision. He called his brother, Rob Huffman, a family attorney in Boston. "This better be life or death," Rob growled. "It might be." Burton explained everything. Rob was silent for a long moment. "You need to get her evaluated. Immediately. Not by her current psychiatrist, someone independent. And you need to start building documentation for custody proceedings. She's my wife. I love her. You love who you thought she was. The woman lying to you about hearing voices while pregnant with your child? You don't know her at all." Christmas morning arrived with fresh snow and the smell of Karina's cinnamon rolls baking. She moved through the kitchen humming carols, seemingly having forgotten the previous night's confrontation entirely. Burton watched her, searching for signs of the darkness Dale had described, but saw only the woman he'd married. "Ready to face the Thornton circus?" she asked brightly. The drive to Lake Forest felt like traveling toward an execution. Dale answered the door, his eyes meeting Burton's with desperate urgency. Tracy had transformed the house into a winter wonderland, complete with a 12-foot tree dripping with ornaments. Karina's younger half-sister, Lana Castillo Thornton, was there with her fiancé. Dale's mother, Patricia, held court from her usual armchair, dispensing opinions and bourbon in equal measure. Everything seemed normal. Too normal. After dinner, Dale pulled Burton aside again. "Did you talk to her?" "She denied everything. Said you were having delusions." Dale's face went red. "That's exactly what Eileen used to say. She'd gaslight me constantly, make me question my own sanity. It's part of the illness, Burton. They become master manipulators." "Or maybe you are having delusions," Burton shot back. "Tracy mentioned you've been under stress." "Tracy doesn't know anything." Dale's voice rose. "I've protected this family from the truth for 24 years. I rebuilt our lives from ashes. And now you're going to let my daughter repeat the same tragedy because you're too weak to face reality. Grandpa, you okay? Lana appeared in the doorway, concerned. Dale smoothed his expression. Fine, sweetheart. Just boring business talk. But as Burton returned to the living room, he noticed Karina watching him from across the room. Her smile didn't reach her eyes. The drive home was silent until Karina suddenly said, "My father's trying to destroy us." "What? He never approved of you. Too young, too working class, not from the right families. He's making up stories to drive us apart. The police reports are real, Karina. The death certificates are real." She turned to him, and in the passing streetlights, her face seemed to flicker between expressions. Loving wife, stranger, something else entirely. What if they are? What does my mother's illness have to do with me? The medical records from Dr. Bell were obtained illegally by my father, who's been obsessed with controlling my life since I was a child. Do you know why I became a nurse? To escape his suffocating paranoia. And now he's infected you with it too. Burton pulled into their building's garage. "I need you to see someone. An independent psychiatrist. For the baby's sake." "No. Karina." I said no. "I'm not going to participate in my father's vendetta. I'm not going to let him make me think I'm crazy." She got out of the car. "You need to decide, Burton. Either you trust me, your wife, the mother of your child, or you trust a man who's been lying to his own daughter for decades." Burton spent the week between Christmas and New Year's in a state of suspended panic. He'd taken emergency leave from work, claiming a family crisis. His supervisor, Douglas Mercer, had been understanding but concerned. "You look like hell, McLean. Whatever's going on, deal with it. I need you sharp for the Peterson Industries audit in January." But Burton couldn't focus on corporate fraud when his own life was imploding. He hired a private investigator, a former cop named Cliff Ritter who specialized in domestic cases. Ritter's report arrived via encrypted email 3 days later. The contents made Burton's blood run cold. Karina had indeed been seeing Dr. Bell, but she'd stopped appointments 6 weeks ago, right around when she'd discovered the pregnancy. Her medical records showed a diagnosis of schizoaffective disorder with a prescription history of Risperdal and clozapine, both discontinued against medical advice. Dr. Bell's notes included alarming details. Karina reported hearing her mother's voice instructing her to protect the innocent and had expressed fears that evil could pass through blood. But Ritter had dug deeper. He'd interviewed neighbors from the Thorntons' Old Lake Forest address, people who remembered the August day in 1998. An elderly woman named Helga Hendricks had been walking her dog when she heard screaming from the Thornton house. "I called the police," Helga had told Ritter. But there was a little girl standing in the yard, just standing there in her nightgown, watching the house like she was waiting for something. When the ambulances came, she didn't cry, didn't react at all, just watched them bring out those tiny body bags with no expression on her face. The little girl had been Karina. Ritter had also uncovered something Dale hadn't mentioned. Karina had a sealed juvenile record. At age 14, she'd been briefly institutionalized after an incident at her private school involving another student and a pair of scissors. The details were protected, but Ritter had a source who remembered the case. The Thornton girl told investigators she was removing the demon from a classmate, the source had reported. She'd cornered a younger student in the bathroom and was attempting to cut symbols into the girl's arm. The family paid for silence, and Karina was hospitalized for 3 months. Burton's hands shook as he read. This wasn't Dale's paranoia. This was documented, repeated pattern. He called Rob again. "I need an emergency custody order. Before the baby's born." "On what grounds?" "She hasn't hurt anyone. The juvenile record is sealed. She's off her antipsychotics and hearing voices telling her to protect the innocent. Her mother drowned 3 children. What more do you need? Evidence of imminent danger." "Burton, I know this is terrifying, but family court won't separate a mother from her newborn based on her mother's actions decades ago. You need her to be evaluated, diagnosed, and deemed a risk. Otherwise, you're just a paranoid husband trying to take away his wife's baby. By the time we have that proof, my child might be dead." Rob's voice softened. "Then you need to get her help. Real help. Involuntary commitment, if necessary." Burton researched Illinois mental health law. To commit someone involuntarily, you needed proof they were a danger to themselves or others. Hearing voices wasn't enough. Not unless the voices were commanding violence and the person showed intent to obey. He began documenting everything. He installed cameras in their condo, hidden in smoke detectors and picture frames. He kept a journal of Karina's behavior. He contacted Dr. Bell's office, finally reaching the psychiatrist on January 2nd. "Mr. McLean, I can't discuss my patient. Your patient is pregnant and off her medication. She's showing signs of psychosis. If something happens to my child, and it comes out that you knew she was unstable, how will that play in court?" Dr. Bell sighed. "I've been trying to reach Karina for weeks. She's not returning my calls. Based on her history and diagnosis, pregnancy is extremely high risk. The hormonal changes can trigger acute episodes. She needs to be monitored closely." "What's her diagnosis exactly?" "I can't. Her father already showed me your notes. Schizoaffective disorder with paranoid features. Auditory hallucinations. History of violent impulses. I'm not asking you to violate confidentiality. I'm asking you to help me protect my child." Another pause. "Bring her in. If you can convince her to come in for a session, I can evaluate whether she meets criteria for involuntary hospitalization." "But Mr. McLean, be very careful. Patients with her profile can become dangerous when they feel cornered." That night, Burton tried a different approach. He made Karina's favorite dinner, lit candles, created the romance that used to come easily to them. "I'm sorry," he said over wine, sparkling cider for her. "I've been letting your father's paranoia get to me. But you're right. I should trust you." Karina's expression thawed slightly. "Thank you. I know this has been stressful. I want us to do one thing, though. For my peace of mind. Let's see a couples counselor. Someone who can help us prepare for parenthood together. I don't need therapy. Not therapy. Just counseling. Every couple should probably do it before having kids, right? It would make me feel better." She studied him across the table. "You're still worried." "I'm worried because I love you. Because I want us to be the best parents we can be. That's all." After a long moment, she nodded. "Okay, but someone neutral. Not one of my father's cronies." "Of course." Burton scheduled an appointment with a counselor recommended by Dr. Bell, someone trained to recognize psychiatric emergencies. The session was set for January 8th. But on January 5th, everything accelerated. Burton woke at 2 a.m. to find Karina's side of the bed empty. He searched the condo, finally finding her in the nursery they'd been preparing. She stood in the center of the room, surrounded by paint cans and brushes, the walls covered in symbols he didn't recognize. "Karina?" She turned. Her eyes had a glassy, distant quality. "I'm protecting the baby. The symbols will keep the demons out." The walls were covered in what looked like occult sigils, painted in red and black. Up close, Burton realized the red paint had a strange consistency. "Is that blood?" "Mine." She held up her left hand. Multiple cuts crossed her palm. "It has to be blood. That's how the protection works." Burton's training kicked in, the same calm assessment he used when analyzing financial crimes. "Okay, that's good. You're protecting the baby. But let's clean up your hand first. We don't want infection." He led her to the bathroom, washed the cuts, bandaged them. All the while, she talked about her mother's voice, about the instructions she was receiving, about how the baby needed to be cleansed the moment it was born. "The hospital will try to stop me," she said. "They'll let the demons in. We need to have the baby at home, Burton. Just us. That's the only way to keep it safe." He tucked her into bed, waited until she fell asleep, then called Dr. Bell. "Document everything," the psychiatrist said. "Photograph the walls, her injuries, everything. I'll prepare an emergency detention order. Bring her to my office tomorrow. If she refuses, call 911 and tell them your wife is experiencing a psychiatric emergency and is a danger to herself and your unborn child." Burton spent the rest of the night photographing the nursery, filming the bizarre symbols, documenting Karina's injuries. The evidence was damning. When Karina awoke, she seemed to have no memory of the night before. She looked at her bandaged hand with confusion. "What happened? You don't remember?" Burton asked carefully. I had strange dreams. About painting." She walked to the nursery, stopped dead in the doorway. "Oh God. Karina, we need to get you help." "I didn't do that. I couldn't have." But her voice lacked conviction. "We have an appointment with Dr. Bell this afternoon. Please come with me." She turned to him, and for a moment, he saw genuine fear in her eyes, not the paranoid delusions, but actual recognition of what was happening to her. "I'm becoming my mother." "No, you're getting help before anything bad happens. That's the difference." The session with Dr. Bell was conducted in the presence of two other psychiatric professionals. After an hour-long evaluation, during which Karina alternated between lucidity and bizarre statements about cleansing rituals, Dr. Bell made his determination. Mrs. McLean, I believe you're experiencing a severe psychiatric episode related to your pregnancy. I'm recommending immediate hospitalization for your safety and the safety of your child. No. Karina stood. You're all part of it. My father put you up to this. Your father isn't here, Dr. Bell said gently. Your husband brought you because he loves you and is worried. Burton. She looked at him, betrayed. You're really doing this? I have to protect our baby. I'm protecting our baby. I'm the only one who understands. Her voice rose to a shriek. You're all trying to let the demons in. Security was called. Karina was transported to the psychiatric unit at Cook County Hospital. Ironically, the same facility where she worked. The involuntary hold would last 72 hours, during which she'd be evaluated and medicated. Burton sat in the hospital parking lot afterward, shaking. He'd just had his wife committed, but he'd seen the alternative painted in blood on their nursery walls. Dale called that evening. I heard. Tracy's sister works at the hospital. Is it true? Yes. Thank God you acted in time. Dale's voice was thick with emotion. I couldn't save my other children, but maybe you've saved yours. What happened with the juvenile incident? Burton asked. The scissors. Silence. Then, I thought I'd buried that deep enough. Karina had an episode at 14. She became convinced a younger student was possessed. We got her treatment, thought she'd recovered. She was stable for years, Burton. I genuinely believed she'd beaten it. You should have told me. Would you have married her if you'd known? Would you have given my daughter a chance at normal life? Burton hung up without answering. Over the next 3 days, he visited Karina daily. She was sedated, cooperative, seemingly stabilized on a new medication regimen. The doctors were cautiously optimistic. With proper medication management and monitoring, she can carry the pregnancy to term safely, her attending psychiatrist, Dr. Angelia Pennington, explained. But she'll need to remain on antipsychotics, which carry some risk to the fetus. And she'll need intensive therapy and possibly extended hospitalization or supervised housing. What about after the baby's born? Dr. Pennington's expression was grave. Postpartum psychosis is almost certain given her history and diagnosis. We'd recommend she not be alone with the infant for the first several months, possibly longer. Burton was processing this when Detective Owen called. Mr. McLean, you might want to come down to the station. We've uncovered something about your wife's family history that changes things considerably. The 3rd District station was quiet on a Tuesday afternoon. Owen led Burton to a conference room where files were spread across the table. After your visit, I got curious, Owen said. Started digging into the 1998 case. Found something that never made it into the official reports. He showed Burton a police interview transcript from August 17, 1998, 2 days after the murders. The subject was 8-year-old Karina Thornton. Detective Walsh, can you tell me what you saw that morning, Karina? Karina Thornton, Mommy was giving them a bath. Detective Walsh, all 3 of your siblings? Karina Thornton, yes. She said they needed to be clean. Really, really clean. Detective Walsh, were you there when it happened? Karina Thornton, I watched through the door. Mommy was crying. They were crying. Then they stopped. Detective Walsh, what did you do? Karina Thornton, I helped Mommy. She was so tired. I held Marcus under the water because Mommy's arms were shaking. I wanted to help. Burton's vision blurred. She participated? That interview was suppressed, Owen said. Dale Thornton had serious lawyers who argued that an 8-year-old couldn't be held responsible, that she'd been under her mother's psychological control. The state agreed. But Mr. McLean, your wife didn't just witness a murder. She was an accessory to one. She was 8 years old. And now she's an adult with the same psychiatric disorder, pregnant, and painting symbols in blood. You see my concern. Burton drove home in a daze. That night, he couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. He kept seeing young Karina's face, imagining her small hands holding her baby brother underwater. On the 4th day, Dr. Pennington called him in for a meeting. We've completed our evaluation. Mrs. McLean is currently stable on medication. We're recommending outpatient treatment with twice-weekly sessions and weekly medication management. She's being released? The 72-hour hold has expired. She's no longer meeting criteria for involuntary hospitalization. She's coherent, cooperative, and expressing appropriate concern for the baby's welfare. She tried to paint our nursery in her own blood, while off her medication. With proper pharmaceutical management, we have no reason to believe she's in immediate danger. Burton felt the system failing in real time. What about after the baby's born? When the postpartum period triggers another episode? We'll monitor closely. But Mr. McLean, we can't hospitalize someone indefinitely for something they might do. Your wife has rights. Karina came home that evening, quiet and subdued. She apologized for frightening him, promised to stay on her medication, agreed to all the therapy and monitoring. I'm going to be a good mother, she said. I'm not going to let the illness win. Burton wanted to believe her. But every time he looked at her, he saw that 8-year-old girl holding her brother underwater. Over the next month, an uneasy routine developed. Karina attended her therapy sessions, took her medications faithfully, and worked part-time at the hospital in a non-patient care role. Burton continued documenting everything while trying to maintain the appearance of a normal marriage. But he'd also been quietly working on a backup plan with Rob's help. He'd opened a separate bank account. He'd consulted with a family attorney about custody proceedings. He'd even looked at apartments in other states, places where he could disappear with a baby if necessary. You're planning to kidnap your own child, Rob said bluntly during one phone call. I'm planning to save my child's life. Burton, you could go to prison. There are legal ways. Legal ways that leave my baby alone with a woman who drowned her last siblings. On February 14th, Valentine's Day, Karina presented Burton with a card she'd made herself. Inside was a sonogram photo and a note. Thank you for not giving up on us. That night, lying in bed, she placed his hand on her swelling belly. Can you feel that? That's our daughter. Our beautiful, healthy daughter. Daughter, I just know. Call it mother's intuition. She smiled, but something in her eyes remained distant. I've been thinking about names. What do you think of Diana? Diana Rose McLean? Burton felt something twist inside him. Rose was Dale's middle name. Karina was naming their daughter after her father, the man who'd spent decades hiding the truth. That's pretty, he managed. The next day, he contacted a DNA testing service. If he could establish paternity immediately after birth, he'd have stronger legal standing for custody. It was one more piece of the plan he was building in the shadows. At 7 months pregnant, Karina's medication stopped working as effectively. The hormonal surges of late pregnancy overwhelmed the antipsychotics. She started having breakthrough symptoms, hearing whispers, seeing shadows move in her peripheral vision, experiencing paranoid thoughts. Dr. Pennington adjusted her medications 3 times in 2 weeks. Each adjustment came with risks to the fetus, but the alternative, a complete psychotic break, was worse. In early March, Karina woke Burton at 4 a.m. The baby's talking to me. What? Diana. She's in my head. She's telling me she's scared. She knows about the family curse. She's begging me to save her. Karina, babies can't. She's different. Our daughter is different. Karina clutched her belly. She knows things. She's showing me things. Burton, we have to do something before she's born. Once she's in the world, the demons can get her. But right now, inside me, she's safe. The implication was clear and horrifying. Burton called Dr. Pennington immediately. An emergency session was scheduled for that afternoon. But Karina refused to go. I'm not going back to that hospital. They'll drug me until I can't hear Diana anymore. They'll silence her warnings. For the first time, Burton felt genuine fear for his own safety. Karina was bigger now, stronger with pregnancy hormones, and she was standing between him and the door with an expression he'd never seen before. Karina, please. Let's just talk to Dr. Pennington. No more doctors. They're part of the conspiracy. My father sent them. She lunged at him. Burton barely dodged, stumbling backward into the kitchen. Karina followed, grabbing a knife from the block. I have to save her, Karina said, raising the knife. If I can't save her inside, I'll save her by setting her free. Burton's forensic accountant brain processed the scene with terrible clarity. Pregnant woman, psychotic episode, weapon, imminent danger. He grabbed his phone and dialed 911. I need police and an ambulance. My wife is having a psychiatric emergency. She's pregnant and armed with a knife. She's threatening to hurt herself and the baby. Karina looked at him with an expression of profound betrayal. You called them? You're helping the demons. She turned the knife toward her own belly. Burton tackled her. They crashed to the floor, Burton's only thought to keep the blade away from her stomach. Karina fought with a strength born of madness, screaming about demons and salvation. He managed to pin her wrists, the knife clattering across the tile floor. "I'm sorry," he gasped. "I'm so sorry, but I can't let you hurt her." Police arrived within minutes. Karina was sedated and transported to Cook County again, this time directly to the high-risk pregnancy unit. Burton followed in his own car, hands shaking so badly he could barely steer. Dr. Pennington met him in the waiting room. "She's stable for now. We're monitoring both her and the baby. But Mr. McLean, we need to discuss delivery options. Given her state, a C-section might be safer. We can control the environment, have psychiatric staff on hand, minimize the risk of postpartum psychosis triggering during labor. When she's 32 weeks. If we can keep her stable another 3 weeks, 35 is considered safe for delivery. But honestly, I'd recommend we consider it sooner if her condition deteriorates." That night, Burton sat in the hospital chapel, a space he hadn't entered since his mother's funeral 10 years ago. He wasn't religious, but he needed somewhere quiet to think. His phone buzzed. "Dale, I heard about the incident. Is the baby okay?" "For now." "Burton, I need to tell you something I should have told you months ago." Dale's voice was strained. "There's more to Eileen's story. Something I've never told anyone. I don't see how it could get worse. The week before the murders, Eileen told me she was pregnant again. A 4th child. She seemed happy about it initially. Then one night, I came home and found her in the bathroom, bleeding. She'd tried to perform an abortion on herself with a coat hanger." Burton's stomach churned. "I got her to the hospital," Dale continued. "They saved her life, but couldn't save the pregnancy. Eileen was devastated. She kept saying she'd killed the only one who could have been saved. A week later, she drowned the other 3. The police never made the connection, but I always wondered, did she kill our children because she'd failed to kill the unborn one?" "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because Karina knows. She was older than I realized when it happened. She overheard things, saw things. And I think somewhere in her fractured mind, she's recreating the pattern. She's trying to save Diana the way Eileen tried to save that unborn child." Burton ended the call and sat in the chapel for another hour, watching candles flicker. Patterns within patterns. Mothers and daughters, violence and salvation, all tangled in a web of genetic bad luck and inherited trauma. The next morning, he met with his attorney, a sharp-eyed woman named Diana Barrett. Ironically, the same first name Karina had chosen for their daughter. "I want full custody," Burton said, "from the moment of birth. I don't want Karina to have any unsupervised access." Barrett reviewed his documentation, the videos, the medical records, the police reports. "You have a strong case for supervised visitation only, at least initially. But full custody will be harder. Illinois courts favor maternal rights, especially for infants. You'll need to prove ongoing danger." She tried to stab herself in the stomach while pregnant, while in the midst of a psychotic episode, off medication. With proper medical management, a judge might believe she can be a safe parent. What about her childhood? The fact that she participated in killing her siblings. Barrett winced. Those records are sealed. Getting them admitted would be nearly impossible, and even if we could, she was 8 years old. Any judge would view her as a victim, not a perpetrator. Burton felt the walls closing in. "So what do I do?" "Hope that Dr. Pennington's assessment after delivery supports your case. Document everything until then. And pray your daughter is born healthy despite all this stress." At 34 weeks, Karina experienced placental abruption, a life-threatening complication where the placenta separates from the uterine wall. Emergency C-section was performed at 2 a.m. on March 24th. Diana Rose McLean came into the world weighing 4 pounds, 3 ounces, screaming with healthy lungs. Burton held his daughter for the first time in the surgical suite, tears streaming down his face, while Karina lay sedated on the table. "She's beautiful," the nurse said. "Does Mom want to hold her?" "No." Burton's voice was firm. "Mom needs to recover first." Diana was taken to the NICU as a precaution due to her early arrival. Karina was moved to recovery, then to the psychiatric unit once her surgical wounds were stable. She would remain hospitalized indefinitely. Burton spent the next week sleeping in the NICU waiting room, holding his daughter during every permitted moment, and refusing to allow Karina visits. "She has a right to see her baby," the hospital social worker, Carly Hull, insisted. She has a diagnosis that makes her a danger to that baby. Check her psychiatric chart. Mr. McLean, I understand your concerns, but legally, both parents have rights. Then give me something legal that says I can protect my daughter. It took another week to get an emergency hearing. Judge Kenneth Trevino reviewed the evidence. Karina's diagnosis, her family history, the recent incidents, Dr. Pennington's assessment. This is one of the most disturbing cases I've seen, Trevino said finally. Mrs. McLean, you're granted supervised visitation only, 1 hour per week, with a psychiatric professional present. Mr. McLean will have primary physical custody. We'll revisit this in 6 months, pending your treatment progress. Karina, present via video link from the psychiatric unit, showed no reaction. She'd been heavily medicated since delivery, existing in a fog of pharmaceutical compliance. Burton brought Diana home to the condo on April 15th. He'd repainted the nursery, removing all trace of the blood symbols, decorating it in soft yellows and greens. He'd installed additional security cameras. He'd hired a night nurse, a competent woman named Nadia Choi, to help with overnight feedings. For the first month, he barely slept. Every sound made him jump. Every time his phone rang, he expected news that Karina had escaped, that she was coming for Diana. But she remained hospitalized, slowly improving on a new medication combination. Her supervised visits with Diana were awkward, stilted affairs with Dr. Pennington present. Karina would hold the baby mechanically, say appropriate things about how beautiful she was, then hand her back without apparent emotion. The medications are blunting her effect, Dr. Pennington explained. It's a trade-off, stability versus emotional connection. In late May, Dale died. Heart attack, sudden and massive. Tracy called Burton with the news, her voice shattered. He was under so much stress, she said. The guilt over everything with Karina, worry about you and Diana. I think it just consumed him. Burton took Diana to the funeral, a somber affair attended by Lake Forest Society members who whispered about the family's tragic history. Karina was granted a 4-hour release to attend, heavily medicated and monitored. She stood at her father's casket, dry-eyed. He protected me for so long, she said to Burton. And I repaid him by becoming exactly what he feared. It was the most lucid statement she'd made in months. After the funeral, while settling Dale's estate, Burton discovered something that changed everything. Hidden in Dale's private study was another safe, this one containing videotapes dated from 1998. The tapes showed the inside of the Thornton house. Dale had installed hidden cameras after Eileen's first hospitalization. Burton watched, horrified, as the events of August 15, 1998 unfolded. Eileen, wild-eyed and disheveled, carrying the twins to the bathroom. Little Marcus toddling after her. And there, 8-year-old Karina, standing in the hallway, watching. But the police interview had been wrong, or Karina had lied. The video showed Eileen alone in the bathroom with the children. Showed her holding them under the water one by one while they thrashed and died. Showed her slitting her wrists afterward. And it showed Karina, standing outside the bathroom the entire time, watching through the cracked door with an expression of detached curiosity. Never helping. Never calling for help. Just watching. Dale had kept this evidence hidden for 26 years, protecting his daughter from what it revealed. She hadn't participated in the murders, but she'd done nothing to stop them. She'd watched her siblings die with no more emotion than someone observing an interesting insect. Burton understood then that the psychosis wasn't the whole story. There was something else in Karina, something that had been there since childhood. An emptiness where empathy should be. He brought the tapes to Detective Owen. This changes things. Owen watched the footage, his expression darkening. This doesn't show her committing a crime, just failing to act. At 8 years old, with a psychotic mother. No prosecutor would touch this. But it shows what she is. What she's always been. Maybe. Or it shows a severely traumatized child dissociating during an unbearable event. Owen ejected the tape. Mr. McLean, you have custody of your daughter. Your wife is hospitalized indefinitely. What more do you want? What Burton wanted was understanding. He began researching, diving deep into psychiatric literature, talking to experts. He learned about attachment disorders, about how severe childhood trauma could create permanent changes in personality structure, about children who watched parents commit violence and internalized it as normal. One psychiatrist, Dr. Osvaldo Bell, the same doctor who treated Karina, agreed to speak with him off the record. Some people are born with genetic vulnerabilities, Bell explained. Karina inherited her mother's schizoaffective disorder, but she also witnessed and failed to intervene in a triple homicide at a developmentally critical age. The combination created someone who intellectually knows right from wrong, but doesn't feel it in the way most people do. So she's a sociopath? That's not a clinical term we use anymore. But Karina has significant deficits in emotional empathy. The medications can control her psychosis, the hallucinations, and delusions. But they can't make her feel connected to others in a neurotypical way. Can she ever be safe around Diana? Belle was quiet for a long moment. Honestly, I don't know. She doesn't want to hurt her daughter. But she also doesn't feel the protective instinct most mothers have. If her psychosis tells her that killing Diana is saving her, Karina won't have the emotional firewall that would stop a healthy person from acting on such a thought. Burton spent the summer in a state of hypervigilance. Diana thrived, a cheerful baby with Burton's eyes and Karina's dark curls. The supervised visitations continued, though Karina showed minimal interest. Then in August, Dr. Pennington called. "We're recommending Karina be transferred to a long-term care facility. She's stable, but will need years of treatment before she could potentially live independently. She's agreed to voluntarily commit herself." What about her parental rights? She's willing to discuss termination. With her consent, you could proceed with sole custody permanently. The paperwork was completed in September. Karina signed away her parental rights in a conference room at the psychiatric facility, her signature steady, but her eyes empty. "Take care of her," she told Burton. "Diana, take care of her better than I could." "I will." "And Burton, don't let her know about me. About any of this. Let her think I died in childbirth or something. She deserves a normal life." Burton took Diana and walked out of the facility, feeling as though he'd escaped something that had been hunting him for months. But the relief was tempered by the knowledge of what he'd witnessed, what he'd learned. In October, Tracy contacted him. "I'm selling the Lake Forest house. Too many memories. But I found something I thought you should have." It was a letter written by Dale and dated the week before his death. "Burton, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Probably for the best. I've carried too many secrets for too long. I want you to know, you saved Diana. You did what I couldn't do with Karina. You recognized the danger and acted decisively. Don't second-guess yourself. Don't feel guilty." Karina was doomed from the moment Eileen's genetics and that August morning combined in her young mind. "I tried to give her a normal life, but some damage can't be undone. You're a good father. Be the parent Diana needs. And whatever you do, don't let Karina back into your lives. She'll never be safe. No matter how stable she seems, the monster is always there, waiting. Protect your daughter. That's all that matters. Dale." Burton folded the letter carefully and placed it in a lockbox with all the other documentation, the police reports, the videos, the medical records. Evidence of a nightmare he'd escaped. He'd tell Diana the truth someday, when she was old enough to understand. For now, she was just a happy 10-month-old who'd never know how close she'd come to inheriting her grandmother's and mother's fate. On Christmas morning, Burton sat in his living room watching Diana destroy wrapping paper with gleeful enthusiasm. Nadia had the day off. It was just father and daughter, and that was perfect. His phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. She escaped. Karina walked out during a fire drill. No one's seen her for 6 hours. Burton's blood turned to ice. He grabbed Diana, grabbed his go-bag. He'd kept one packed since April, and ran to his car. He'd planned for this. He had a safe house in Wisconsin, a new identity ready, money in untraceable accounts. But as he pulled out of the garage, he saw her. Karina stood on the sidewalk, wearing a hospital gown under a stolen coat, her hair wild. Their eyes met across the distance. Burton made a split-second decision. He stopped the car, put it in park, and stepped out, keeping himself between Karina and Diana, who was secured in her car seat. "Karina, don't do this. I just wanted to see her. One more time. On Christmas. You signed away your rights. You agreed. I know what I agreed to." Karina's voice was eerily calm. "I know what I am. But Burton, you need to understand something. I remember that August morning. Every detail. I remember watching my mother kill my siblings and feeling nothing. Just curiosity about how long it would take, whether they'd struggle. Karina, I know I can't be Diana's mother. I know there's something broken in me that all the medication in the world can't fix. But I needed you to hear this from me. I'm glad you stopped me. I'm glad you saved her. Because if you hadn't, I would have done to Diana exactly what my mother did to the twins." She pulled something from her coat pocket. Burton tensed, ready to fight. But it was just an envelope. "This is for Diana. For when she's older. It's the truth about her family, about me, about everything. You decide when she's ready to know." Karina placed the envelope on the hood of his car and stepped back. "I'm going back to the facility now. I called them before I came here. They're on their way." She smiled sadly. "I just needed to see what I was giving up. Who I was giving up for her own safety." Police cars appeared at the end of the street, lights flashing but silent. Karina raised her hands in surrender. "Goodbye, Burton. Take care of our girl." They took her away. Burton stood in the cold, holding the envelope, watching the cars disappear. Then he got back in his vehicle, looked at Diana's reflection in the rearview mirror. She'd slept through the entire encounter and drove north. He didn't go to Wisconsin. Instead, he went to his office. He had work to do. Over the next month, Burton used every skill he developed as a forensic accountant to build a new foundation. He liquidated assets, moved money, created paper trails that would protect Diana if anything ever happened to him. He hired attorneys to ensure that even from prison or a psychiatric facility, Karina could never challenge custody. He also started therapy, because he'd realized something important. He couldn't protect Diana from inherited trauma if he was too damaged to be a stable parent. He needed to process what he'd been through, to heal, so that Diana would grow up in a home free from the shadows that had haunted the Thornton family. In March, a year after Diana's birth, Burton received word that Karina had been transferred to a maximum security psychiatric facility in southern Illinois. She'd attempted suicide twice and was now under constant monitoring. Dr. Pennington called to give him the details. "She's never going to be released, Mr. McLean. Her prognosis is poor. The best we can hope for is that she remains stable enough not to hurt herself." Does she ask about Diana? Never. It's like she's closed off that part of herself completely. Sometimes that's a mercy. Burton hung up and watched Diana toddle around the living room, chasing after a ball. She laughed, a pure sound of joy that echoed off the walls. She was healthy, happy, whole, untouched by the darkness that had consumed her mother and grandmother. He'd won. Not because he'd been stronger or smarter than Karina, but because he'd recognized the danger early enough and been willing to act. He'd torn apart his marriage, committed his wife, fought through courts and systems designed to reunite families, all to save a child who didn't even know she'd been in danger. The envelope Karina had given him sat in his safe, unopened. He'd read it someday, but not yet. For now, all that mattered was the sound of Diana's laughter and the knowledge that she was safe. On Diana's second birthday, Burton took her to the park. She ran through the grass, chased butterflies, lived in the perfect present tense of early childhood. And Burton watched, ever vigilant, forever grateful that he'd listened to Dale's warning that Christmas night. The Thornton family curse ended here. With Diana. With the choices Burton had made to protect her. Some patterns could be broken. Some cycles could be stopped. But only if someone was brave enough and saw clearly enough to act before tragedy became inevitable. As Diana called for him to push her on the swing, Burton smiled. He'd saved his daughter. He'd won the war against genetics and history and the terrible legacy of violence that had haunted her family. And that, he thought as he pushed Diana higher and heard her delighted squeals, was worth everything it had cost. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your time. If you enjoy this story, please subscribe to this channel. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.